Good afternoon and welcome to TalkSports, special program for today. At a special time, I should say. It's our Saturday Sports Special, and do apologies for our belated start, but it was due to unforeseen circumstances. But also, we have this special hour where we pay in tribute to a legend, Tyrone Sampat Harbin, who recently passed away. And the news from Grenada, a bit sad because it's not long after, previous to Sampat Harbin, it was George Major Jackson, a former national footballer himself. Then we heard about the passing of Sampat Harbin. And then today we also learned of the passing of Mr. St. John, well, the brother, I should say, of Sir Walter St. John, and he also passed away today. So another, sporting icon, as we will say, also passing away. That is Miss Monty St. John. That's the correct name. Monty St. John, we heard of, also passed away. So what we'll do, we'll be hearing shortly from some persons who obviously that provided some, they will be able to provide some background to us on the life and times of Sampat Harbin and those others. Some of them would have played alongside him or either be coached or managed, mentor, whatever it is. We have quite a few of them who are waiting to talk to us. And we'll hear from them. Some of them no strangers to the program. Mr. Chenny Joseph, who's the president of the Grenada Football Association, obviously will give us some background on the Grenada Football Association. Ali Dibelot, former cricketer, badminton player. I think he played cards and dominoes, and also we have Bowser Wilson, who's also standing by, former national player. So these guys obviously would have been impacted by Sampat Harbin somewhere or the other. Well, Ali would have worked along with Sampat as well in the ministry, and Bowser will be able to share with us some also insights into in memories, I should say, of Harbin. Certainly it will be something we can certainly look forward to. So probably to start it off, I will go to the president of the Grenada Football Association, who obviously will be able to give us something on behalf of the Grenada Football Association, Harbin, a national footballer, former national footballer, I should say, and also a national cricketer. But we'll hear because I heard some, even before his passing, I heard someone was saying that when they travel to the islands, people will always ask about former national footballers or cricketers. Harbin was one of those they will ask about and things like that. Let me hear from, first of all, Chenny Joseph. Good afternoon to you, Chenny. I'm certain,
Hi, Mike.
Chenny,
good afternoon and good afternoon to you.
Right. And first of all, Chenny, the passing of Harbin, and then we also heard of Monty St. John, and even before that, George Major Jackson as well. Obviously, the Grenada Football Association saddened by the passing of these sporting icons, former sporting icons, Chenny.
Yeah, good afternoon once again. And on behalf of the Grenada Football Association, we extend deepest condolences to the family of George Major Jackson, also Sampat Harbin. And even though I did not know much about Monty St. John, but by extension, his brother Walter played a part in football. So we also extend the same condolences to the St. John family. It took us by surprise. It's kind of ironic when I learned of Jackson's death and the media contacted me. I suggested to them that they should contact Sampat. And it was like 1 or 2 days after we heard that things weren't good with him. And it's unfortunate, but we all have to go through this path. So we just want to say our sympathies goes out to the family of both. Incidentally, I did have some acquaintances with both Judge Jackson and Sampat, and hopefully we'll speak a little about that.
Yeah, well, okay, no problem with that. So let me go on now to Ali the Bellot, who obviously will be able to reminisce some of what he knows about the late Harbin, and I assume also Major Jackson as well. Ali?
Yeah, well, good afternoon to everyone. And as the president said, I want to express condolences to the family of all these great icons. As you said, Sampi was really a close friend of mine. I think you will know that we live in Maloney Street, so I live just about 2 or 3 houses from Sampi. And then we work in the ministry for quite a few years. In fact, I took over from him as head coach for football when he was promoted to assistant coordinator. So, we had very, very good, not relationship, but companionship. Of course, he played for St. George's. And not going into too much detail, of course, I think, unreplaceable in terms of probably one of the best goal scoring person that Grenada ever saw. And, just want to express the condolences to him and his family. Also, Major, I actually played some for autumns with Major. And in fact, I don't know if I'll be supported by the president and Bowser. It was the first overlapping wing back that I think I ever saw in football. And today, that's a big thing, but Major Jackson was probably the first of that type. And St. John, his brother, of course, as probably president, I didn't know much about him, but just the fact that he was Mr. St. John brother, that in itself, gets to me. So I want to express my condolences to all these guys.
Oh, all right. Well, from what I'm hearing from Lincoln Toro Depredine, that they both were national athletes and managers and shared membership in Dauntless Sports Club. So that certainly will be some memories. We'll come back to you folks because you'll have to share some of what I'm certain you folks would have heard things about Sampat, Jackson, things that you want to share with us. Certainly the memories, Let me go to Bowser Wilson, the king of Victoria and St. Mark. And certainly Bowser may be able to share something that he knows about these guys. He may have played, I assume, with, let me make it a guess. Oh, Major Jackson. yeah, Major. Bowser? Oh, your mic. Bowser, you're muted. You have to unmute. Right. And I need to see your head. I think you're... Yeah. I need to see it. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. And I want to say a pleasant good day to the viewers. Ali and Chenny. I mean, they already state exactly the things that I might have just go maybe. So what I will say, I will just duplicate what they're saying. Sampat, right, was an icon of mine as a youth, right? Because he's not a countryman, so to speak, and he was one of the better goal scorer in Grenada. I want to agree with the two previous callers. When you hear Grenada score is Sampat, what score, right? Especially when they're going out, when they travel to St. Vincent or St. Lucia. I've never heard Grenada play football outside Grenada in the 60s and early 70s and Sampat name and call as a goal scorer. To me, he was a marksman. That's the only marksman Grenada had. Jackson, as Ali rightfully said, I used to see him coming down the flanking shoot, and he was rugged player. You can't pass Jackson just like that. And that is just, yes, my introductory speech, but I just want to say too that I'm in bereavement with my brother George. You're supposed to know that. Right? Mm-hmm. And brother George was a football fanatic, especially with Grenada and Hurricane, and he died 8 days ago, and it's not an easy thing for me, but I still feel it's fit to come and, you understand, make me contribution towards good people. Right? And let me just stop at this point. I didn't know Monty St. John that well, so I can't say much of him right now. So I just want to rest my case for the time being.
Yeah, but before you run off, Bowser, you played along with Major Jackson, right? You played with Major Jackson.
Yeah, but not too long. I didn't play much games with him. I think I represent Grenada once with Major Jackson. Once. And Major Jackson was that type of player, right? That even though you dribble him now, he comes back at you one time. You don't know where he's coming from. He was rugged. He was good in the air. He was good on the ground. And he used to be coming down that right flank and shoot, right? But he wasn't that type of crafty player, right? He wasn't that type of crafty player as Heads and Mia, right, in the back. He was rugged. That's the type of player I know Jackson was.
All right. Chenny and Ali, I think, was Bowser made a very important interjection there, that of Brother George. Very ardent supporter and contributor to sports, particularly football.
Yeah, Ali, allow me to first go. I'm just making it public now that, again, to Bowser and all of the other relatives of Brother George, I also want to convey my deepest sympathy to you and your relatives. I did reach out to Bowser already, but I want to say that Brother George, in fact, also contributed to the development of sports in Grenada. And I will say, for example, football, because many kids who were not given a chance to go secondary school based on their grades in GBSS and PBC and McDonald College and others, they were given a chance to do so at the St. John's Christian Secondary. And I will add further to say that even some players I know of who did not do well in fifth form, Brother George also reached out to them and said, well, you have a second chance at life. And he admitted them into the school, even though their main contribution might have been in the game, whether it's football, cricket, athletics. But I want to also express my deepest condolences to the family of, Brother George, and Bowser by extension. Again, my sympathy to you here. If I can just quickly say, the first club I played for in the GFA was Atoms. And the very first game I played was against St. Andrews. It was at that time Halifax. And I remember playing my first game up in Grenville, Victoria Park. And I wasn't even expecting a game because I was probably about 15 years. And I remember someone gave me a hard tackle. And I was scared because Alistair Telesford was also playing in that game, my first game. And I remember halftime Jackson, and I'm sure about that. Jackson said, young boy, anytime somebody tackle you, just tell me who, and I will deal with them for you. And that's one of those moments I remember. But more importantly, I had fond memories with Jackson when I played cricket wind ball cricket and hardball cricket. I played wind ball cricket for Esplanade, and he was a fond supporter of us, even though he played a few games also. And then again, when I played for Fontenoy in cricket, Ali happens to have been the other person who was outnumbering me with wickets. But Ali, I hope you will say I was a good spinner and sometimes a good medium pacer. But
the only problem, the degree of the arm would have been into contention these days.
Yeah, but yeah. So it's incidentally, both Ali and I played for Atoms. We played also for Fontenoy, and somewhere along the line we had to interact with Jackson. I don't know if it's appropriate to speak about it, but I recall when things started going a little bit downhill for Jackson, and I had just gotten onto the executive. Elliot Maguire was the president, and we reached out to the National Lottery Authority to ask for support for Major at that point in time. And I want to say a lot more, but I don't think this is a forum because we're really speaking about these great people who have just passed on. And quickly, with regards to Sampat, even though I would recall other things later on, my fondest memories of Sampat will be two occasions. Again, that time I was no longer with Atoms. I went across the Queen's Park Rangers, and Michael, you're hearing this for the first time. I could not make Queen's Park Rangers first team, but I made the national team. Patty Modest is another person like that. However, back in the day, the GFA used to have parish competition, and Sampat was an integral part of that arrangement. And he said, "Young boy, you have a boots?" And I say, "Yeah, I have one." He said, "Go for it and come." Back then, it was the Brazilian coach. What's his name? Jorge Ramos. No, Jorge Ramos. And I remember running for my boots and coming back, and Sampat said to Ramos, "The little boy could play, give him a chance." And then that's how I got on to the Grenada national team by playing for St. George's that Sunday in Queen's Park against St. Andrew. But my next fond memory of Sampat, apart from many, many interactions, I'm seeing his son, a little boy now, standing outside the vehicle and waiting until national team done train. I'm seeing his deceased wife right now standing up there until after we finish training before she go home from work. But the next fond memory I have of Sampy was when we went to Dominica for the Windward Island tournament, and he was, I think, the team manager. However, the unfortunate reality is that they said the coach and the manager had to have the best rooms. And so they had rooms with toilet and bathroom facility inside of their bedroom. But unfortunately, Sampion was right next to the bedhead. So he was not too comfortable about it, but there was no other opportunity for him to get an upgrade. And I remember him talking about that the whole time while we were out there. So these are two little memories I have of Sampy, apart from many other things, as I said, but as the program goes along, we'll speak about those.
Ali, certainly for one who would have worked along with him for a while, as you took over as a senior head coach in the ministry as well. But then there was also the Gary Sobers tournament that Harbin, I think, was part of, in terms of the Grenada team participating in the schoolboys cricket in Barbados for many years. There are a number of things that he was involved in, but share some of your memories with us, Harbin and all the others that we're talking about today.
Yeah, well, that Garfield Sobers thing, I think he was probably the pioneer of it in Grenada. In fact, I was speaking to Mohon, the ministry chat site, and Steve Mohon, put up something, and he said that that was the first person that actually coached him to play cricket. And I was telling Stevie, well, he did learn, but probably he just couldn't go past him. And they were very similar in the way they batted. Sampy he was just full of style, whether on the football field, on the cricket. even the way he walked, I mean, he had a special walk. He was just that type of person that will attract your attention. But one of the things I remember about him once, they had asked about scoring goals. In fact, he said he scored 99 goals for Grenada. I'm not too sure how the stats will show, but he was very confident that he had scored 99 goals playing for Grenada. And one day we sat together and we were saying, "What is the technique I use scoring goal?" He said, "All you do, give him the ball. If the ball start from the midfield, bam, bam, give him, bam, and he kick goal." You're certain that once he kick, the ball will score. And you hear the talk about right foot and left foot. You should have that balance. I'm not too sure any one of the goals in the 99 was with his left foot. He was pure a right foot player. And well, I'm not sure he got the name, but it's alleged that Sampat came from the fact that they actually had to Sampat him to get the ball, because when he gets control of the ball, you have a term, you Sampat a man. And so I'm not too sure if that's how he got it. But once he got possession of the ball, I saw him play quite a few matches against, whether it's for the UEFA or what. And tell you, once that ball got to him, fortunately, he was always in and around the box. He didn't really shoot from far, but he was still a very, very good kicker. And that's it for the football. In the cricket, I tell you, he was a very, very stylish batsman. And as you said, years up to my time going to the different islands, people always ask you about Sampat Harbin. Always, every single island you go to, his name will be called. So he has that ability. The Gary Sobers one, yeah, for sure. He was one of the pioneer about it. He kept it going, and really that did a lot for Winod Island cricket and the Caribbean cricket, where quite a lot of the players went on to do very well in cricket.
Let me I think I put it up already, but I must put it up because I saw Chenny laughing. Because Toro is saying, "But what you expect, Ali? Sampy's a Wolf man. He must have zest." Okay. And I guess as much in terms of the walk and all of that you were referring to,
Bascom, tell Toro, for a Wolf man, you don't see as many people at the Caribbean should learn anything from Sampy, because they were never that a good goal scorer. But tell, well, I don't know if you're a Wolf man. Maybe yes, Sabi, oh yeah. But tell him he lived in Maloney Street for quite a while.
Right, yeah, because I think Monty St. John was Wolf and, all these.
Yeah,
but let me a comment there that I want to read off from Paul Roberts. And, he says, the picture making the rounds with Sampat Harbin of the 68-69 Grenada national football squad ironically now has 9 deceased members. We were known as the death squad of the Pop-On tournament, destroying St. Vincent, St. Lucia, Dominica under coach August Uta. Now the chickens have come home to roost with the passing of Major Jackson and Sampat Harbin from the squad. We should have been more careful what we wished for in the 60s and 70s. Jackson and Sampat are the 8th and 9th members of that death squad that have passed. Sado, but Bowser,
yeah,
yes, certainly. I know you have been listening, and then you may have been recollecting some things that may have, come back to mind regarding any of these gentlemen, particularly Major Jackson or Harbin, that you want to share with us.
I certainly want to do it. I want to thank Chenny again for his condolences to my best friend and best brother George, right? When I remember some highlights of Sampat, right? I remember playing for Dauntless, and they came up in Victoria and played Hurricane. And Dauntless beat Hurricane 5-0. And Sampat scored 3 of them goals, right? And that was the hardest I ever see a man kick. The goalkeeper had no chance. I can remember. I was watching the game because I couldn't make Hurricane teams those days. And
really?
They beat Hurricane 5-0. And when the game done, they was driving back to St. George. When they reach in Guav, Big Doc say, he said, I drop a bomb in Victoria. Just like that, right? I can never forget that. And that same year, the return game, Hurricane beat Dauntless in town. I just want to go back on Sampat. Sampat was not a walker in football, right? He was a goal scorer. I've never seen a man score goals easy like that. You know, Sampat used to be just waiting from the pass from Telesford. And that's the man used to supply him. And he positioning himself, and he just had to move 2 steps and shoot and score. That's why I say he's the best marksman Grenada ever see. Honestly, right? He was the best marksman. So this is some of them things this is some of them things I really that highlight of Sampat. That's the highlight of Sampat.
Any truth to the saying those days that Sampat was the great loafer?
Well,
I wanted to ask.
Listen, in those I will say that because in loafing those days, I don't think they used to blow him so much. He was just waiting. He conserving all the energy for when he get that ball to run, pass, and shoot. So that, you understand, that in itself, he was producing exactly what is necessary to win game. He was doing exactly what is necessary to win game. And he don't know nothing about loafer. We didn't know before we used to say man loafing. But it wasn't really loafing in that sense. He was the type of player that was just waiting in a good strategic position to get ball and score. And I don't see that happening today.
Jenny?
Yeah, I don't want to go too much into the debate about them as active players, whether Sampat or Jackson, because as I said, I played with Jackson on his way out. However, I remember watching a game, Dauntless versus 100 in the old grandstand. And I was telling someone this week about it. It was like on Dauntless' way out. So, and 100 was emerging. 2 players I remember well, a fellow named Pangalang, something Dekoto, I can't remember his first name, and then Sidney John, Godzilla. And I remember halftime, 100 was leading Dauntless, and Godzilla came out and he started loosening the screws under his boots, and he said he was going to leave one in one of the players' shin. But I could recall very well as a little boy, and I am certain about what I'm saying because I've been around the national team, Michael, from age 9 or 10, whether it was marking the register or sharing milk. And I remember it might have been Sampat who said, why do you have to do that and we're going to still win the game? And as I said to you, they were behind by about 3 goals. And although that I think was Dauntless last year, they came back and won the game in Queen's Park. That was most likely 1978, 79, thereabout. And I remember it very well. He couldn't be 79, sorry, so he had to be 78. But I remember it very well. And another thing I remember about Sampat, and I say that more from my own mentor, because the person who really taught me initially to play football was Alistair Telesford. And I always felt that Alistair was given an unfair deal over Sampat. Because as far as I heard from everybody, Alistair used to be doing most of the work, and the ball is almost past the line when Sampat will just put his foot, at least say his right foot, just put his foot and cross it or get it across the line. But there was another player I remember seeing Sampat playing with, and I believe he's still alive, a gentleman named Les Howard. And these were two men I always admired as a young person outside of Alistair Telesford. I didn't know much of the country players until I probably was in my mid-teens. But what I can say to you, though, is that Sampat goes beyond just the player we talk about. He was part of that formidable group who went to Grenada's first ever World Cup campaign when they were leading, not as a player, but they were leading in Guyana 2-0, and they lost 5-2. I don't know if Bowser was part of that team.
I was in Guyana. I was in Guyana.
Yeah. And I remember Sampat being part of it. I remember him being one of the person who was instrumental with pushing this thing, support Grenada to World Cup in Spain, 1982.
Yeah.
This is one of those moments I remember about Sampat. I also remember, or shouldn't say remember, I was told, and so hopefully Ali or somebody would say that, Sampat gave Roy Lewis an opportunity to play for Windward Island before he made the Grenada cricket team, I am told. And again, Sampat has had impact on many people. Paul, who again was a senior to me when I just joined Atoms, will know more about Sampat as a player than I do. But what I can say to you is in the last few months, Grenada has lost many good souls. And I just want to continue to say that we need to do some more to continue the memory of those people. There are many again who are still alive, and we have to try and document it before they go. I won't speak much about it, but one person hopefully in the future we might be able to talk about is Andrew Monroe, another great player who represented Grenada. And there are many others, like I said, but we should not be speaking about them after they go. Even Ali De Bellot, the leg spinner for Grenada, the vibrant defender for Grenada youth team. You know, those kinds of people, we shouldn't wait till they go Paul Roberts, others. Let's talk about them and let's talk to them about their life as sportsmen before they go. That's just one little contribution I want to make here now.
All right. Ali, before you come in, I know you have some things to say, but let's just go back on this. Toro saying Sampy mother was from the Wharf. All his brothers played with Angel Harps, including Fatman, Bakey, Buck Rabbit, and Judas. And then he's saying, I always tell men, if I'm picking an all-time Grenada team, my first pick will be Sampat. He may not have been the most flashy or skillful, but he scored, and goals win matches. Ali?
Yeah, well, I agree with Toro, but the first pick for me would have been Ali Telesford and then Sampy. Sampy was the best goal scorer. Ali Telesford, I thought, was the best player that I saw. The things I've seen doing, I've not even seen people today at the international level could do what Ali did. And very few people could score the type of goals I see Sampy score. So these two would be really a couple of levels above the others. I want to talk about the scenario with what Chenny brought up with Rawl. I don't know, he would have probably seen him in school cricket. But Conrad Francis had a story about that because when they got to the games, you know, people wanted to know, well, who this little boy? You know, and Conrad said, well, when you watch him, he's still playing cricket. And he said, but if you could bowl to me, then probably you were able to make the team. You know, everybody was kind of, this little guy, where this guy come from? Who is this little schoolboy? In fact, they wanted to be somebody's son. You know, and well, Conrad could have hardly play any of the deliveries, and so Rawl, as you know, from there on went on and make it all the way up. And in fact, I thought at one time probably should have even skipper in West Indies. But of course, no, he's doing an excellent job as manager. So, you know, people like Sampy, and I suspect Steve Mahon and a number of other guys will say that, you know, Sampy was the person that really spotted him. And, you know, he had that nick. He had that way of writing and keeping things intact. You know, he is, you know, that type of person. So, yeah, I think the thing about Rawl is one that probably, you know, I suspect how heartfelt he is now that Sampy has gone. the brother George, I spoke to Bose. We speak fairly often, so I would have extended my condolences to him already. But one of the thing about brother George that probably will stay with him is that he never wanted to lose. You know, he had that he had that something about him. Whatever it takes to win, brother George would have find it. Yeah, by whatever means necessary. So again, another stalwart. In fact, the last time I saw brother George was during the COVID, sometime when they were allowing very few people to go in the stand, and he was sitting in the stand by himself, and I went and sit there and talk to him. So yeah, another he didn't play, but surely a stalwart of the sport.
Yeah, and I'm talking about the stalwart of the sports because he was so passionate about it to the point where, as Chenny made the point to where he offered scholarships. The likes of Shawn Merriman, for example, will talk about him. I think Jojo through the association with Ram Folks, and a lot of these guys were able, after leaving one school, and were able to go on and play, just to continue their level of education and things like that. And Brother George was the person I understood. Even his support and contribution was that you don't have a problem to get to school. My bus is available, and he will take them to and from. I'm certain, Chenny, these are things you would have heard as well.
Yeah, and beyond just those two who have done extremely well, there are many others we can speak of. I am certain Jerry Alexis could speak almost as passionate about the good thing Brother George did up at the school, and even his brother, who is not speaking much about him. But I will say to you, I know of many others whom Brother George gave a second chance, and today they will tell you that life is better for them thanks to him giving them that second chance to move on to do a second year at fifth form. I think that school might have been one of the few schools that were taking repeaters. So you always found also that St. John's Christian Secondary always seemed to have had persons a little older when it came to the senior division. Talking about that, I remember GBSS. Ali, I wonder if you or Carlos was the coach of the GBSS team. I can't remember, but it would have been around 81, 82. And we had to play, we played against St. John's Christian Secondary in the intercall football. And they gave us about 4-0 or 5-0, and GBSS was supposed to be this big team, people like Wayne Hood, Batai Thomas, myself. And when we looked at those players, most of them, we always had the suspicion that they were a lot older. I only got to realize that when I reach in my 50s. Then when they say some of them, they've gone on, and you hear they died at 61, 62. But so as Ali said, even though he was giving people a second chance, some of them had a long time there. Some of the better athletes also came from St. John's Christian Secondary, and again, thanks to the support provided there. But I also want us to not forget Jackson did a lot for Grenada. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, I think he came from a Panamanian background. His mom or dad was from there. But anyhow, they ended up in Fontenoy. And I know he has also produced some great children. At least one of them, Johnny, played basketball for Grenada for a long time. So, the legacy continues. But I hope, those kinds of conversations should not be taking place, as I indicated before, when people have moved on, And besides that, I think there's the absolute need for us to really have a sports library, a sports museum, that we can start reading, writing, viewing as much as we can about persons who once contributed to the sport in Grenada.
That's well said, Chenny. Let me get some comments that were coming in there, and I get your reaction there. Toro is saying that another of Sampat's brothers, Von Harbin, was the outside right for Carnage United in the Premier League. Chenny older than he looks. He remembers Lost Howard. The umpires say Ali used to chuck. I say, nah, spinners cannot chuck. All right, Toro. Ali will get back at you. Don't worry about that. Oh, and Porgy Cherubin says he was an early promoter, supporter, administrator of private primary school sports, was very passionate about us doing all possible to develop to the level of the public schools and beyond. He was a lover of track and field. And Clef Deputy says 2 players with the same skill set was Sampat and Lincoln Snatchet Deputy, not Toro, who played for Green Street. Ashley George and Ram scored corner kicks as penalties. Tantine soft shoe exposed kickers from players and ball and foot and footballers. My brother Yankee Man and Whitaker, younger players, were exceptional players. And I guess as much, Chenny, those things will fall into what you're saying in terms of reliving some of those former players. I'm certain Bowser and those guys in Hurricane, for example, in the yesteryear, as we'll say, those who are alive will certainly relive some of those glorious days of football, the exciting moments, the memories. Some may even have photos, of that. One final comment before I get some comments again from you guys. But when I say comment, one final on the board there. Jackson and many of our national sportsmen of long ago come from the now defunct Backstreet School. Yeah, Backstreet School. Bowser, anything you want to add again? I know you keep remembering.
Because
I'm not
yes,
seeing
it's
your
important
face.
that
Bowser, we're not seeing your face. We're not seeing your face.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have to talk about my brothers. Briefly, because between Victoria and Guav, he could have won an election in Guav easily, right? And a lot of times they ask him to run, and he say, that is not in his DNA. Politics is not in his DNA. He always say that because he always tell us that, and he was a father C figure in our family, and it's a great loss. But the good Lord gives and takes. I just want to talk about Jackson. Jackson is the type of players that we doesn't have that type of players today, right? Winning, the mentality of winning to win goals is so important today, right? And they didn't used to give anything for winning before. No money is just a shield. Now you're getting players getting money, and they don't have that type of winning mentality. I know Jackson was a man he never liked to lose, although he used to play in the back. And if we could, as rightfully thoughts of the president and Ali, we should have those things and them documented, so players today should learn from those players, especially what passed just recently, how they should be looking at themselves, playing for the country. I think that is my contribution, and we should learn from them. And even those who are to come and those who presently, let's see how best they could learn about players in the past. And that has hurt me so much in this time, that the type of players we have today, I don't think they really have football, you understand, in the mind,
in the
right?
DNA,
as those in the past.
Yeah, as they say, they don't have football in their DNA. Yeah.
No, maybe not. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nah. As far as Cheney and them had some good. I think that was the last set of players in Grenada that really worked hard to see that Grenada play. Cheney, the Drayton, the brother, the Steve Mack,
Zagada
right?
and company.
Zagadi. I think that was the last of players that worked hard for Grenada to win. I think that was the last set. And they didn't get and they'll get nothing out of football.
Nothing.
Right? Nothing whatsoever football. So
but gentlemen, I mean, and Bowser made an important point, and that's a nice segue. Nothing for football. What it was, could you imagine the Sampat and the Jackson and all these guys playing football in present time? What it would have been like for them, I mean, you know, in terms of, well, you would have seen them played, and a lot of people who are listening and watching may not have seen them played. So you probably might be able to say what type of players they would have been, how they would have been able to fit in to this current dispensation as national footballers, cricketers, etc., with the type of skills they had that you're all reflecting on, the type of discipline, the training, you know, all these things. How would they have been able to fit into that?
Well, Bascom, I think I'll take the lead. I still think they would have been top players. I think both just end with something similar, that what we saw people like Jackson and them did. The Sampa, the Ali Telesford, the Diana Marquez, the Ashley George, the Tank, the Butty, you know, Paul Roberts in the goal. In fact, I not too long ago was talking with someone, and I think it was Conrad Francis. I identify about 9 or so footballers, let's say probably from about 69 to 72, 73, that nearly you haven't seen players that replace them in terms of knowledge and ability at the game. So to me, to this time, I still think they would have been dominating. I don't know if he has something different, you know, for example, you go to cricket and you saw the Sampi and the Cummins and these guys and the type of pace bowlers we had then, Rick Griffith and these guys. And, you know, you see fellas today, seems to be, I mean, a lot of money, but in terms of the ability and the knowledge, I think there was a vast difference. I don't know if overall the standard of sport has dropped, probably except athletics, because every time you're having a better time. And even that is I mean, highly talked about, because I'm not too sure I see anybody, including Kirani, that might have beat Donald Pierre in our 400. So I think it's a different era, but I think these guys would have still dominate.
Mm-hmm. Jenny?
Well, I don't know if it might be a fair statement for me to compare any era. However, I agree with Ali that there's so many, and I'm saying so many players we can talk of that were Frank Bartholomew is one that comes to mind. Gerald Joseph, Bowler Head, Kong, Baker, Kelly Jack. I'm thinking Face, Fellaman. What's his name? Paul from St. Mark.
Yes, I know who Paul you're talking about.
Yeah,
Steve Mark, right? You mentioned
yeah.
Steve. Yeah.
There was one guy. He got shot during the intervention time. Now, Paulie Regis, the lone national player of class I saw from St. David. You know, like the Eros Rapier is a name I will never ever forget. Denison Thomas, Wesley Bataille Thomas. So, like I say, I don't know if it is fair to compare any era. However, I agree with the fact that many people back then, and maybe even before my time, did it for country. They did not know nothing about any money. They didn't care about, you know, the sacrifices they had to make to go up to the country after a training session or what time they got up. They did it for country. This time it's a little different. The focus is not necessarily the same. There's a lot of money now, but the results are not necessarily always the same. What I genuinely hope with all of that, though, is that we can, let's put it like that, as the last edition of Patriots, I'm talking about the Bowser, myself, Ali, Paul, whoever are around. I wish we can try to convince persons that country comes before anything else in the sport. And when you have a chance to represent your country, you should see it as an exemplary something that not much people have had the privilege to do. When I represented Grenada, I felt I was one of the better 20 footballers in the whole of the country. That's how I did. I looked at myself, and so for that reason, whether it was Carnival Monday or Carnival Tuesday, I was instead in the park training. I always say to the current crop of players, Marshall Montano won't leave rehearsing for a next big important gig and come and watch at a football game. He will stay in his studio and practice. Vice versa, if our footballers and other sports person could do the same, I would be grateful. But really the sacrifice that those persons we were talking about today, Jackson, Sampat, to a lesser extent, Monty, based on his brother, those things must be documented, and I am hopeful that we will be able to speak about them, read about them, hear about them again in the future. As we're on that, just before you take on the next speaker, I just want to pass on to Bowser and to the family of both Jackson and Sampat on behalf of Shandon Baptiste, our top Grenadian-born professional player who played today in a drawn game against Liverpool. He has asked me to convey his condolences to all of the deceased, and he wish everyone, safe and comfortable time during this time.
Folks, I will want you to comment when I come back, and that will be our last point, because all three of you would have represented Grenada at the national level. And in the case of Ali, played football, played cricket, and, as Chenny was saying, when you all played, you all played because you were patriots, as they would call it, and proud to represent, your country. And there wasn't any thinking at that time of what it is you get, whatever it is. You folks were happy to represent Grenada, and do whatever it takes to represent Grenada. I think it was Michel Hercules that spoke about that in a program some time ago about, the honor of representing Grenada. I don't think we are seeing that in this dispensation. I want you all to comment on that. But before that, let me just get some comments here. Let me see. Torres Jackson was also highly regarded on his job in security at the airport as a reliable and serious employee. I also found there was a willingness on the part of players from the Jackson Sampat Heads era to mentor and offer advice to younger players. I was much helped by them, and when I entered the GFA in the 1970s. Podgy Cherubin says, we do have a lot of comments coming in. Ali, you care to mention Sampat's father? He lived next to your aunt.
Sequence, he was known as, man. Very, very similar to Sampy, similar body size and shape and thing. I don't know about his playing ability, but he was the top supporter of his son. I can tell you that, especially after he took a couple drinks. Sequence, yeah. Right. He was very similar to Sampy, but he was a sort of not a character, but he was well known in the city, man.
Okay. And Podgy is saying parent support was critical. I think it comes back to a point that you folks were making in terms of the comparison, the era, the parent, the support. Who or what is responsible for the current state of football in Grenada? Cassandra Mitchell, Commission, Barry James, Garvin, Cello, Austin. I mean, these are names. So certainly, I think they wanted to add in the list of names you all folks were calling out. And Vida is saying, I think that I wrote in the wrong to express my sincere condolences on the passing of Sampat. I first knew Sampat when he coached cricket at my primary school, he came to the match at Manjaloo versus Woburn with the late Trevor Thwaites. Oh, how do we forget Trevor Thwaites and Ossie Hall? They nearly kill us. Then he was very instrumental in letting me know which girls he saw in primary school track and field in St. George's. We also worked together at the ministry, and Sampat was very instrumental in placing Royal Lewis. I think that was the point you folks were making there regarding Royal Lewis. And Clev is saying, and before he passed on, remember Rupert Big Bear Williams, who organized the soft shoe competition and provided assistance to many junior league players. He was a modest individual with little resources, but made a difference, not just soft shoe, but also volleyball as well. I know him. And then Paul Roberts is saying, Sampat crosses the era barrier. Football, cricket, sports administration, MBE for contribution to sport. He is the GOAT. Guys, yes. So what a nice segue for us to end on that point in terms of, that point we were making there in terms of that level of, patriotism, proud to represent your country and things like that. So before I start with Bowser, Vida says Brother George was his school coach in cricket, football, netball, athletics, and just about any sport played in school. He always had the bucket of juice. I love to win. We would miss him. I'm glad that the Grenada Olympic Committee honored him. Yes, he was honored by the Grenada Olympic Committee. Yes, he provided the refreshments for the schools wherever they go. I remember Brother George with that. Bowser, about that level of patriotism, proud to represent your country. Something we're not seeing among sportsmen and sportswomen in this era. Even though, as Chelly says, it's not fair to compare, but still, there was this proudness, proud to represent your country. And no matter the sport, whether it's football, whether it's cricket, you will hear them speaking about being proud. Even in those days, I think they used to pay, as Michelle said, pay to fly to countries to represent Grenada. Bowser.
Yes, surely. I will start up with playing for my parish and my club, right? Mm-hmm. With Hurricane. It's only we knew. So when we transitioned from Hurricane to the national team, we continue that patriotism. And I think that is what we knew, you understand, as players. And with that in mind, when you hear you're representing Grenada, you never want Grenada to lose, right? Regardless of our situation in a competition playing in the World Cup. Because I remember when we went to play in Guyana, right? Can you remind me of that? When we went to play in Guyana, when we were 2-0 up. We were 2-0 up in the first 5 minutes. I remember we will score. Our striker those days was what do they call him? For 100, right? He scored the first 2 goals. Bug Belfast scored the first 2 goals, right? And we got 5. We lost the game 5-2 because of bad defending. I mean, I don't want to call them defenders those days, right? That time, Wuta was our coach, and I could remember that time Bishop was our prime minister. Bishop gave us a pep talk that we went with, and when we was looking to listen to the pep talk, we couldn't find it. All we look, we can get the pep talk. In fact, when we reached in Guyana to collect our gears from the airport, there was a sharp play on the bag of balls, and we touched it. And Wuta said we shouldn't touch it, we should pee on it first, right? But we touched it. So I mean, what I'm saying is that was real. We saw a sharp play on the balls on the bag of balls. And Uta was vexed. He said, "I shouldn't touch it. We just pee on it before we touch it." And we end up losing that game. And we didn't even get Bishop's speech. So I think this is some of the experience. And we fight and we still end up losing. And here we are today. We haven't reached as far to qualify to reach in the first 6 in football. But I still, one day, Grenada will reach in the first 8 in the playoff in qualifying for World Cup. I just feel that will happen because we are historical people in sports and in everything. We just have to put the right things in place.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah, Ali, certainly level of patriotism, and I mean, you can move to your experience because you're a footballer, you're a cricketer, you played so many sports at the national level. And I mean, yes, Jenny is saying the era different, and we can go on and call names of so many people that transcend different generations as well. But certainly your time at the national level and what you're seeing now, totally different.
Yeah, you always forget to mention that I didn't lose a race in GBSS. I won the 60, the 1, the 4 GBSS sports.
Right,
So,
and I know.
Maybe I should take on more.
Well, not just that. You say something that probably Chenny may want to add because I know when he gets the last one, you want to put something down with the 400 meters.
No. One sure thing. I think I would have won Old Boys race for about 10 years at the 100. Maybe Chenny might have won the 4 because these guys used to start a long way before the 4. So maybe they could have won that, but the 100 was different. Yeah, well, I think probably a good place to start. I think probably we have to start to look at who we are left. People like the Walter St. John, the Peter Brunos, these type of people. We have to start to document something about them. You know, I always remember when we made Winod Island and we were in transit from St. Vincent to Guyana. You know, to travel from St. George's in those days over the hill to drop a brown envelope. You know, going on the Winod Island team, I think it was $75. You know. But the effort to get to polls, you know, and the amount of things people like, you know, as I said, the Walter St. John, the Bear, the organizers of the different competitions in the different parishes. I think probably we need to start somewhere. And now, you know, might be a good time now that we are seeing people like the Sampi and Major and these guys have left us and not much is left before and now to talk about them while they were still there. I think probably is a good time to start, you know, probably, Mr. President, maybe you could set up a desk. Because when I had this school team in the early days, each player on the team had to go in their parish and get the name of the people who represented Grenada in football. But it was just a thing that we just did for the fun of getting to know the people in your parish, you know. So maybe it's something we could, you know, look at and see how we could get these names and get these people maybe on some list or something, you know, to be talked about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Jenny.
Yeah, I like how Ali ended his remarks, and Ali, yes, I was a good 400 meters runner, and persons got to know that only after I left school because I was winning also like you for about 6-7 years. The Old Boys 400 starting at the starting line and finishing out.
Along with Nixon Modest, eh?
Yeah. No, Nixon and Shane Derby are two persons, I think, when Nixon left school, and him and Shane Derby beat me into third. In other words, I came third. I said, I'm not going back to any GBSS sports and run in the Old Boys race. By that time, I think I might have been past 30. But what I want to say, and Ali mentioned it, Bowser mentioned it, when I first got a chance to represent Atoms and then Queen's Park Rangers, I thought I was doing so for the pride of the community. And then when we got on to make the Grenada national team, I did so for 15 years. And the most I could recall ever getting from football as a result of representing Grenada was in 1989, after we came from the Shell Cup. Ambrose and others organized a rum runner cruise. And I think NCB Bank decided to give each player an account plus some cash. And I remember it well. Was $125 they gave us for coming second in the Shell Cup. But guess what, Michael? Every single thing we ate and drink on the Rum Runner, we had to pay for it. So persons like me who didn't know that until coming off was then told, look, your bill is, and I think it might have been close to $100 because I was giving everyone else something to eat and drink. But on a more serious note, I think at this point in time, what I want to say is that your program must be one that we should embrace because it highlights a lot of things and persons in the sport that a lot of people don't know of. And by doing so, we get a chance to know a little bit about them and their contribution to the country. But more importantly, I think for the younger generation, those who have not yet started representing Grenada, it gives them an indication as to what it was back in the time and what it is today. I saw a question being flashed at the comments that you think. And the truth is, I still maintain that we need to go back to clubs, real clubs in all sport in Grenada and not teams. And hopefully, I am now lucky to be part of the Olympic Committee, and I see my president is responsible for associations. And I'm hopeful that we really will take sport away from just the leisure sport to something more serious. And so the wishes of Bowser to see Grenada one day qualify for World Cup playoff, those kinds of things can come to reality. I want to end by saying that you, Michael, you have a chance to give some of these people whom we know of a chance to say a little bit about themselves. Mr. Lahi has given 30-something years of service as an administrator. Charlie George, I only learned this week, gave 50 years of service to sporting administration. He was once a president of Queen's Park Rangers. And those kinds of people, there's a lot of information we can gather from these people. And so my real wish is not so much about what Ali and I can do today or tomorrow, but the information so we can learn from where we started and understand why we are where we are and what we can do different to make things better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and the thing about it is that all three of you gentlemen, came from clubs, because I am certain for you to, in those days, for you to represent the national team, whether it's football, whether it's cricket, you actually came from clubs. We heard about the Dauntless, the Atoms, whether it's Hurricanes, whatever. They were functioning clubs, and it was almost as if you have to be in a club to make the national team. Just before, because comments are still coming in there, so I want to read one. This one is from Cecil Belfont, aka Turkey, Flying Turkey rather. Sampat was a legend in his own rights. As a youth man in GBSS, I never missed a Pop and Cup game. The likes of Sampat, Jackson, Motel Heads, and his brother from Hurricane, and Paul Ben in the goal. What a team. And then they sometimes accuse Sampat of loafing, but I believe he understood how to be in the right spot, unmarked, and all the middle had to do was get the ball to him for a finish. I remember he knew how to place the ball in the goal, not thunderous shots, but place and angle shots outside the reach of the goalkeepers. He's on my top shelf of memories for his on-field skill and on-field approachability. And Lincoln says, I'm glad poor people's children are making money in sports, whether cricket, football, or track and field. I just would like to see many more of them working harder to develop their skills and develop a consistent winning attitude. And then Clever saying Old Trafford rewarded players with in-kind benefits. A pity you were too young, Chenny, to be part of that dynasty. And pride is needed, yes, but I believe that too many young sportsmen and women seem to think that they will be great at their sport by merely modeling their lives, watching video, and dressing like the stars of the world instead of doing the real hard, rigorous work that will carry you to the top. And again, you folks, did the hard work in your days, paid off, and I'm certain the memories will live on. I want to thank you very much, gentlemen, for being part of that program, and certainly always a pleasure hearing from you. Sad that we have to do a program to speak about someone who is not there, and I'm certain we'll have the opportunity to probably speak more about the sportsmen and women of yesteryear who are alive. And it will be so much an honor having them speaking, and you folks, supporting and asking them if they recall this and recall that, sharing memories. I think that will make an interesting discussion with you folks speaking to someone who you recalled or played with or whatever it is like that. So, and sharing some of the memories. Thank you once again, gentlemen.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Okay. Yeah. So there you have it, folks. Ali DeBellot, Bowser Wilson, yes, and Chenny Joseph, president of the Grenada Football Association. They all former national players themselves. In the case of Ali DeBellot, he played both football, he played cricket, he played badminton, just about everything Ali could have put his hand and foot, I should say. He did that, and it's interesting. I mentioned it about Ali because, I always wondered how these guys, and, I know I spoke to Ali a couple of times before, but, it's nothing, bad in terms of having them coming back and speaking on specific, things, because I always wondered how these guys were able to play rather at the highest level in these sporting events these days, with so many things at their disposal in terms of technology, money, etc., and they find it hard, just playing one sport, But back then, these guys were national footballers, cricketers, badminton players. They even participated in track, just about any sport. Probably, as I said once, if American football was at their disposal, they may have probably excelled in it as well. How they did that, we don't know, but they did it without money, without all the technology that's available, and they competed at the highest level. These days, so many things at the youngsters' disposal. It's so easy for them, and yet for one sport, and it's very, very hard for them. It's difficult. They complain, they this, that, and the other. Thank you very much. After the program, certainly I will go and chat with these guys on the off and get some comments. Thank you once again for being part of today's program. Always a pleasure having you. Unfortunately, we had to do a program of this kind, paying tribute to someone who had passed away, and not just Sampat Harbin. We also paid tribute to George Major Jackson and also Monty St. John, the brother of Sir Walter St. John. As we understood, he also was a national footballer and also involved in culture as well. They played pan, angel harps, etc., etc. Thank you once again for being part of the program, and hope for you to be with us on Thursday. Next Thursday, God's willing, for another in the TalkSports program. Enjoy your weekend. Michael Basca.